The story of Buddha in the monkey house. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was an old couple living together. If it weren't for the birds, they'd live happily. The old man wholeheartedly took care of the small field, pulling out tufts of weeds, but as soon as a bud sprouted, hungry birds came and pecked it clean. There has never been a case where the old man had a bumper harvest. Every night, he would toss and turn in bed and dream of giant birds coming to destroy the fields and eat every last seed. In the morning, he woke up sweating profusely, and was exhausted. "Lady, we can't stay like this forever. Pack me some food and find me some colorful rags, I'm sure you can find them easily. I'll dress up to see if I can keep all the birds away." One day, after a sleepless night, the old man said to the old woman. The old lady grabbed a few handfuls of rice and then rummaged around the box to find rags for the old man to wear. "Wow, what a dashing scarecrow! Look at the green hat with piles of woolen baskets, the jacket and undershirt sewn from many patches of white, black, blue fabric, big and small flowers, and the waistband of the pants is also wrapped with a red scarf as a belt." After packing his clothes, the old man went out to the middle of the field and waved his arms and legs to make the rags flutter. Then he started jumping around, and indeed no bird dared to land in the field to eat the seeds anymore. "You greedy bunch, you already know my hand? From now on, don't try to eat my seeds." The old man was delighted with his initiative. The sun was already rising, the old man lazily waved his arms, and his dancing slowed down. "Anyway," he told himself, "I have chased away quite a few birds, so I can sit down on the edge of the field and rest for a while to regain my strength." Then he sat down, crossed his legs, squeezed rice out of his hand, but before he could eat, his hands fell to his knees and his head fell to his chest. The old man slept soundly. It was a hot summer day, the sun was blazing, everywhere was quiet, even the birds were looking for a shady place to stay. The old man slept deeply. Suddenly, a group of monkeys jumped out from the forest. They looked around curiously, and a monkey cried louder than all of them. Suddenly one of them saw the old man sitting on the edge of the field, wearing colorful rags. They pulled each other closer to the old man. They approached while cautiously ready to run away if that strange thing moved. But the old man was sleeping so soundly that he no longer knew anything. And because he sat still, the monkeys became more and more bold, and one of them even reached into the basket to squeeze out rice. In an instant they were all devoured. Then another one that was quite old also approached him and carefully examined him. "Do you know who this is?" he finally said to the others. "This is probably a statue of a Buddha, and the rice grains are donations." "That makes sense, it's probably a new Buddha statue. And how beautiful he is! I've never seen one like that." Another one stroked the colorful rags admiringly. So the monkeys were no longer afraid, they howled and then pulled the rag and pulled the wool. Finally, the oldest monkey said, "Bring this Buddha to our temple. The other animals will be surprised and jealous when they know we have such an unusual Buddha." The other children were very pleased to hear that. Some children joined their hands to make a palanquin while others carefully placed the Buddha on it. Of course it was so loud that the old man had to wake up. He was surprised to hear the monkey's conversation about himself and became curious. He wanted to know where the monkeys were taking him, and he thought to himself, "I will sit still and pretend I am made of real wood." How surprised she will be when I tell her this strange story." The monkeys carrying the Buddha cautiously moved forward. Arriving at the riverbank, they were busy looking for a place to wade across for a long time, because they did not want to get such a beautiful Buddha wet. Finally they found it and gently waded across the river. Happy to have found such a beautiful Buddha, they began to sing loudly. Honestly, we can hardly understand the song through their screeching noises. Each monkey sings differently, but the song makes them very happy. Be careful with your steps, my friend, be careful so that our Buddha can reach the shore dry. Hee hee, please be careful with your steps. Suddenly interrupting the song, a monkey shouted, "You guys raise Buddha high. What's wrong with the tail being wet? As long as Buddha's tail stays dry. It screams like that, but it raises its tail high so it doesn't get wet." The old man had to hold back a lot to not burst out laughing. It's funny how the monkeys look so worried about me. Finally crossing the river, they cheered and rushed to the shore and brought the old man to the temple, located high on the mountain. Actually, it was not a temple, just a deep cave, in which there was a wooden platform used as an altar. That wooden platform must have been taken by monkeys from some abandoned temple. The monkeys placed their beautiful Buddha on it. Sometimes they came closer to look at him, sometimes they went out to the cave entrance and cried out, each trying to scream louder than the other. How beautiful is the Buddha! There is no other Buddha like that in the world. Finally, they told themselves that if they wanted Buddha to like their house, they had to offer donations. Thinking so, they rushed to all directions to find something worthy to offer to the Buddha. A few hours later, the monkeys returned to the cave one by one, each bringing and placing on the altar the best thing they could find. While offering their donations, they knelt down and prayed in trembling voices, "O Venerable Buddha, please accept this poor monkey's petty gift." One placed a handful of delicious walnuts on the altar. Another placed a piece of fresh tree root still oozing sap. One even brought back something that must have been stolen from a merchant or a pilgrim. Through some carelessness, another offered a broken fan or a piece of colored glass. In short, each child offers Buddha what they believe is most precious. The ceremony was long and the donations piled up on the altar. After being motionless for a while, the poor old man was now exhausted, but he didn't want to show it because who knew what would happen. He had to wait patiently to see how this would end. The monkeys lingered in the cave for a while longer, but then they lost interest in the new Buddha and scattered out into the forest to find other entertainment. As soon as he could no longer hear their cries echoing in the forest, the old man quickly climbed down from the altar. One more moment, he told himself, and I will turn into a real wooden statue. He gathered everything that could be useful to him, especially gold coins. In his entire life, he had never owned such a large sum of money. He quickly left the cave because he absolutely did not want to encounter the monkeys again. Returning to the city, he exchanged gold coins to buy a winter kimono and a summer kimono for his grandmother and himself. With the remaining money, he bought a large box full of delicious dishes. What a party! And when he told the old lady the story of how the monkeys had carried him across the river, and how they were afraid of getting him wet, the old lady burst out laughing. Then the old man had to repeat the monkeys' song over and over again and describe how they looked when they knelt before the respectable Buddha. The loud bursts of laughter made the jealous neighbor suspicious. She knocked on the door and asked, "Are you alone? Please come in," the old man and woman invited. And they offered her delicious dishes brought from the city. "What's so funny about you and your grandparents?" the neighbor asks, her face pale with jealousy but still pretending to smile. The old man then recounted his adventure and showed her some new kimonos. Hearing the story, the neighbor quickly said goodbye and went home. She impatiently waited for her husband to return. As soon as she saw this man take off his sandals, she immediately said, "Listen, early tomorrow morning, you must pretend to be a scarecrow and go to the field immediately. Do you know how lucky our neighbor was, yet he brought back some worthless things? As for you, you will probably bring back more than that." And she only stopped when she had told the story from beginning to end to her husband. Then she took the still good fabric for making kimonos, tore it into many pieces and the next morning disguised her husband as a scarecrow. "Now go to the field and wait for the monkeys." The neighbor left, but he did not stand in the middle of the field and wave his arms and legs to chase away the birds like his grandfather did the day before. This man sat down right on the edge of the field, crossed his legs, put his hands on his thighs and bowed his head pretending to be in deep contemplation. He waited for the monkeys to come. He had to wait a long time, and only when he was about to fall asleep did he suddenly hear the monkeys hurriedly coming out of the forest and shouting to each other, here it is, our Buddha is back. Today, he is not dressed as beautifully as yesterday, but it doesn't matter, we have to bring him back to the temple anyway." Once again, they made a palanquin, placed the neighbor on it and carefully carried it away. It must be said that this man was not comfortable at all and was visibly annoyed with the squealing sounds of the monkeys. But he accepted it because he wanted to get rich quickly. Arriving at the riverbank, the monkeys began to find a place to wade across and sing their song. "Be careful with your steps, my friend, be careful so that our Buddha can reach the shore dry. Hee, please be careful with your steps." They thought these howls were singing. The neighbor thought to himself and couldn't help but laugh. But when they reached the middle of the river, the monkeys shouted again, "Don't be afraid of getting your tail dipped in water, as long as Buddha's tail is dry." So this man couldn't hold it in anymore, he burst out laughing uncontrollably. "That's not Buddha, that's human, a trickster," the monkeys shouted. Angry, they immediately threw the neighbor into the water and hid into the forest, not stopping hissing. The water carried the man away. He thought he had reached his end. But in the end, he was lucky enough to hold on to a poplar branch leaning into the water and climb to shore. He was shaking like a leaf and pieces of wet cloth fell down, wrapping around his legs, making it difficult for him to walk. Dressed like that, he had no face when he returned to the village. He had to hide in the bushes and wait until dark. It was late at night that he dared to return home. "I hope I don't meet my neighbors, otherwise I'll die of shame," he said to himself when he saw the village. He started running home as fast as he could. It's been a few hours, the wife has been waiting, standing right next to the door. As soon as she saw him running back, she happily thought to herself, "My husband must have brought more things and is rushing back to tell me. I wonder what we can buy." Before her husband arrived home, she took off all her old clothes and threw them into the fire along with her husband's clothes. "I don't want to see these old, tattered things anymore. We'll buy some really gorgeous clothes." And yes, the gorgeous outfits. If their neighbors hadn't given them their old kimonos out of compassion, they would have been naked. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.